Hello everyone, I am Binodini Kar from RI Bhubaneswar. Welcome you back to today's session on tools and techniques of research. To help us to understand briefly, we have with us Professor Ramakant Mahalik from Department of Education, RI NCERT Bhubaneswar. Sir, please tell something about tools and techniques, and before tells about that, please briefly say what is data, like in the data collection process or in the discussion with tools and techniques, we have to know what is data and what is qualitative data and quantitative data. So
when we are discussing about educational research methods and when you want to conduct the research study, it is important to understand the tools and techniques used in the data collection. So, before we discuss about tools and techniques of data collection in detail, let me tell you like what is data, what is quantitative data, what is qualitative data. When I say data, I mean any information relevant to the research topic. So, it can be a quantitative information, it can be a qualitative information. I mean it can be in terms of number, or it can be in terms of words, in terms of picture, in terms of video, in terms of documents. So, data is very essential for doing educational research. So, if I say quantitative data, so quantitative data means, so when we gather data in terms of scores, in terms of numbers. For example, you are collecting data about students' achievement in science. So, after collecting data, you have only numbers, and that number is a numerical data and that number is a quantitative data. On the other hand, when you collect data about the quality of something, for example, you want to collect opinion of the people about women education. So, here you are not collecting data in terms of numbers, you are collecting data in terms of the words. So, this word, the phrases, the paragraph, the statements are examples of qualitative data. Qualitative data also includes your video recordings, your audio recordings, your artifacts, whatever things you collect other than numeric are part of qualitative data. Again also, if I say in case of quantitative data, we are measuring the quantity, we are measuring the amount, we are measuring how many. Suppose you say how many students, how many computers, okay, how many scores. So, these are all in terms of number, and it quantifies your variable or your concepts. But on the other hand, in case of qualitative data, you are interested in quality, you are interested in why, you are interested in how. Why education should be provided to the girls or women? This will give a qualitative opinion. So, if you want to collect quantitative data, you have to use a variety of tests that will help you to measure. But if you want to collect qualitative data, you have to go for an interview, you have to go for questionnaire, you have to go for observation, you have to go for field notes. So, finally, quantitative data will give a brief and summarized information in terms of the number, but qualitative data will give you a in-depth information, a in-depth insights of a particular variable or a data.
thank you, sir. Very nicely you describe what is qualitative, quantitative and what is data. Then, sir, can you tell the measurements, scales of measurement, and what are the levels of measurement to?
Yes, when you are discussing about quantitative data, quantitative data, we have to understand what are the scales of measurement, what are the levels of measurement. Because quantitative data, that is coming from our test, psychological test, educational testing, creativity test, personality test, and these are expressed in terms of a scales of measurement. These are expressed in terms of a scale, and therefore we say there is a scales of measurement. It is very essential for researcher to understand different scales of measurement, different level of measurement, because this level of measurement will help the researcher to decide the methods of data analysis and specifically to decide the kinds of statistic is suitable for a particular type of data. So, let me tell you, there are 4 levels of measurement: nominal level of measurement, ordinal level of measurement, interval scale of measurement, and ratio scale of measurement. So, the most powerful data, I think most objective, robust kind of data that we get from ratio scale. Ratio scale is useful for all kind of physical measurements. Suppose you are interested in the heights of the students studying in class 3. So, when you are dealing with height is a physical variable that can be measured very objectively, and you can measure it in terms of inch or in terms of feet, in terms of the meter. So, that gives a more absolute data. The data that you are getting from this physical measurement like your height or weight, that is example of ratio data. And in case of ratio data or ratio scale, you can use any kind of statistics, discrete statistic, inferential statistic, parametric statistic, all kind of statistic you can use it. But when you are coming to the education and sociology and psychology, most of our variables cannot be measured the way you can measure the height and weight. So, then here we use a interval scale. So, interval scale has no absolute 0 points. I mean, like if I say I have conducted a test, achievement test, one student secured 0 marks. I cannot say that student does not know anything about the subject. This is very difficult. It may be I can say that particular student has secured 0 marks in a particular test. If I give another test, he or she may get some marks. So, because here there is no absolute 0 point. The 0 that I have used here, 0 score or 0 mark, that is arbitrary in nature. And therefore, interval scale is or can be utilized any kind of statistics like your discrete statistic, inferential statistic, parametric statistic, we can use for interval scale data analysis. And most of the cases in our education, when you are measuring achievement, personality, intelligence, creativity, aptitude, and when you are using tests, then this data are interval data, and this data can be used by using any statistics. And then if I come to another kind of scale, ordinal scale. Ordinal scale means here you are just giving a sequence, giving a ranking or giving a order to any kind of variable or any kind of attributes. For example, you want to measure the dance performance of a group of students. So, dance performance you cannot use here interval scale or ratio scale. The dance performance must be measured in terms of ranking. So, out of 10 students, you have to rank students in terms of the dance performance. So, maybe the first position is the best one, then you can come to the second, then you can come to the third, and you can come to the 10. And this 1 to 10 is a rank, this is a order. So, therefore, we say this is ordinal data. And in case of ordinal data, you cannot use all statistics that you have using for an interval scale and ratio scale. So, here you can use very less number of statistics. For example, if you are going to measure some central tendency in ordinal scale, you can maximum use the median. If you want to use correlation in ordinal data, you can use a rank different methods. It has certain limitation. But if I come to the lowest form of data, that is nominal data or nominal scale. And many researchers, they say nominal scale is not a type of data. In case of nominal scale, what happens? It does not measure, it does not say it is more or less. It only say your boy, your girl, this is your roll number, this is your building number. So, this is a table. So, here in case of nominal data, we are collecting information about a particular variable or particular human being or particular maybe room number, maybe building number. So, here measurement, I think in terms of quantity is not there, it deals with only in terms of quality. And if you compare all the 4 levels of measurement, I say in education we are using interval scale and little bit ordinal scale, and nominal scale we are using, but this nominal scale we are using only for getting a background information. Since because nominal scale is not measured, ordinal and interval we are measured and we are using in education research. Ratio scale we are not using because of certain difficulties in educational measurement. We are dealing with a subjective element of human being.
Thank you, sir. This is very fascinating. Like then, sir, can you tell something about the types of data sources like primary and secondary sources?
Like we also need to understand there are another 2 types of data. This is on the basis of source, primary data and secondary data. So, primary data, I mean, as a researcher you go to the field, you collect the data. It is primary because you are the first person you collected and you will use for your data analysis and interpretation and preparing reports, and therefore, it is a primary data. But in case of secondary data, the data is collected by someone else, you are just using it for your research study, for your analysis, for your reporting. For example, the National Achievement Survey is conducted by NCERT, and that is an example of secondary data. So, NCERT has conducted data, and that data you have taken from internet or you have taken from website of NCERT. Then you started analyzing the performance indicators of National Achievement Survey at different subject across different states. Then you have done a research paper, you publish it. Here your source of data is secondary. But I should tell you also, both primary data and secondary data are important. It all depends upon the purpose of our research. Sometimes we need primary data only, sometimes we need only secondary data, sometimes we need both primary and secondary data.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, there is so many tools and techniques are available for young researchers. So, can you differentiate between observation schedule and interview schedule?
Yes, tools and technique, let me also clarify this point. These are 2 words always we use together, tools and techniques. Let me tell you what is tools and what is technique. Tools means these are the instruments by which you are collecting data. For example, psychological test are the tools, your questionnaire is a tool, your interview schedule is a tool, your attitude scale is a tool. Tool means these are the instrument by which you are collecting data. You are going to the field with the tool and you are circulating among the sample, then you are collecting it. But there is another term, that is technique. What is technique? Now, technique means the process or the method, the strategy of using tools. Suppose for example, psychological test. Psychological test can be used in offline. I can go to the field and give the question psychological test, and personally I can collect the sheets. But the second way, I can fill into the Google form and I can share the link and everyone will fill it and the data will come to me. So, here difference is that technique can be here offline, technique can be online, technique can be one at a time. Like in case of interview, we can have a one-to-one interview, we can have a group interview. So, these are the techniques. Technique like one at a time you are collecting data, you are going to the school, sitting with one teacher and asking teacher to write down. But in other cases, you are asking 5 teachers at one place and circulating the questionnaire and asking them, sir, please fill it. So, tools are the instrument and techniques are the strategy, the method that you use for collecting data. And your question that you are asking me, there are a variety of tools that we use in the education research. And primarily, I can divide into 2 categories. One is a test or another is a non-testing. Test means we have a lot of psychological tests. Psychological tests are there, I mean personality test, mental ability test, creativity test, aptitude test, educational test like a achievement test, diagnostic tests. So, these are all tests. Test will give you the quantitative data. Test will give you data in terms of in a interval scale. But on the other end, there are many non-testing devices. I mean your observation you are telling, observation is a non-testing, interview is a non-testing, questionnaire is a non-testing, sociometric technique is all non-testing. Even if you are going to the field and collecting data by writing your full notes, field notes, these are also non-testing. So, basically you can have a test, you can have a non-testing. As a researcher, we should master how we can utilize both testing and non-testing for gathering data for our research.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you tell something to our young researcher and students when they prepare about the questionnaires, to what points they will keep in mind? Like some tips.
Questionnaire is a very important tool that we are using in education research. I think if you ask any student, either a MAd student or PhD student, so if you ask them what is your tool, they will tell, sir, I am using questionnaire. So, I can say questionnaire is a widely used tool for social science and education. So, when you are using questionnaires, I should tell you, what is a questionnaire, what are the different types of questionnaires are there. If you see questionnaire means it is a set of questions. Questionnaire means it is a series of questions relating to one particular problem, relating to one particular issue, maybe relating to one particular variable. So, questionnaire can be, there are 2 types of questionnaires are there. Sometimes the questionnaires are structured questionnaire, very very strict format is there in the questionnaire. Suppose for example, you have a one question followed by 3 options, agree, disagree, undecided, that is also questionnaire. These are structured questionnaires. Sometimes we have a unstructured questionnaire. In some questions you have yes and no. Sometimes in some question you want open-ended questions, open-ended, like what is your opinion about girls' education? I am asking a question, so the sample can write, the respondent can write the answer. So, basically we have a structured questionnaire and we have unstructured questionnaire. Only the difference is that in case of structured questionnaire, so every questions are decided. Every question has a certain options. The respondent will read the question and identify or tick mark on a particular options given. But in case of unstructured questionnaire, it is different. Here the respondent can write their answer, and therefore we say structured questionnaires are close-ended. Structured questionnaires are close-ended, like questions and options are there. You don't have any option to write on your own. You have to only select. But in case of open-ended questionnaire or unstructured questionnaire, you have option to write. See, it all depends upon your objective, your variable you want to measure. Some cases we use structured questionnaire, some cases we use open-ended questionnaire, some cases we use both open-ended, closed-ended questionnaire, because questionnaire is a tool that can measure a diverse variable in education research. It can give you quantitative data, it can give you qualitative data. So, it can give you both qualitative and qualitative data.
So what about semi-structured one? Everyone liking
That semi-structure I am telling when I am talking
What?
about to structure some items, unstructured some item, they say it is semi-structured. Like it is kind of mixed questionnaire. Sometimes you are writing one question, whether ICT lab is available in the school, yes or no. This is a structure it. If yes, write down the number of computers there, number of laptops are there, number of smart boards are there. So then becomes you make it little unstructured. So both together they say it is semi-structured questionnaire.
Is it because of the trend in mixed method research influence?
That may be because of nowadays we are talking about mixed method research where quantitative and qualitative data are essential. It may be one of the reasons why you are going for a kind of a combined method, open-ended and closed-ended both. I don't see any demerits of using any one form or mixed form. But I only want to say that you try to prepare a questionnaire that can suitable to measure your variable, that can answer your research question, or that can fulfill your research purpose. So that is something we have to keep in mind when we are writing or developing a questionnaire.
So what about observation techniques?
Very observation technique, when I say the observation is a qualitative tool. Like if you want to get a qualitative data or a thick narration, thick description, then we use the observation. Observation is a very simple. Like the researcher will go to the field and observe the behavior, the action of the students and record it. Nowadays, since technology is everywhere, we can use computer like a camera or in our mobile, we can record the observation. So, simply you are visiting school and observing students, you are recording it. For recording observation, we are using a observation schedule. So, what is observation schedule? Now, observation schedule is nothing but the points that you want to observe during your observation. Because without observation schedule, if you go, you may observe something, you may note something, you may not note something, then your observation becomes haphazard. To make your observation very focused one, very systematic and objective, so it is better to prepare an observation schedule. A list of points you note down and go to the field and try to observe and note down. Observation can be, sometimes people say there is a natural observation. Natural observation, I mean students are playing on the ground, you want to you go and see and observe their behavior, the natural observation. Students are dancing, students are fighting, students are throwing, so everything, this is a natural observation. So here students are not aware about they are being observed, but sometimes we have a participant observation, we have a some kind of created environment observation. Here what happens? The participant know that you are outsider, you are researcher, you want to observe it. Then you can observe it and you can note down your points. But the only problem is that when students came to know that you are outsider and you are here to observe them, then they become demonstrate their artificial behaviors. But the purpose of observation is to collect the real behavior, the real action of the students. But it all depends upon the researcher. I also want to tell you that observation or conducting observation requires a set of skills. So like it requires a lot of orientation, lot of training, so that you can really observe or you can really record the observation. So I can also say that observation can be participant, observation can be non-participant, observation can be structure, observation can be unstructured. Only difference is that in one set of observation you decided this point I will observe and you will go there and observe it, and another set of unstructured observation you are just going with the maybe some points. You can observe these points or you can observe something else also. So, unstructured, this is nothing restricted here. I think sometimes the unstructured observation gives a very valuable insights of your research, and mostly for qualitative research we use the observation.
Yes, sir. Very nicely you explain about observation and types of observation also. So, sir, I have also a doubt, and students also that doubt, like checklist and rating scale. What is the difference? They are kind of similar, and it arranges the
Yes,
doubts.
like we have another two kinds of tool we use. One is you are telling checklist,
Checklist.
another is rating.
Rating.
If you say checklist, if you just focus on the term check
Check.
list, so that means see here there are some list is there and you have to just check it. It is available, yes. It is not available, no. It is available, yes. Not available, no. So, therefore, in checklist we try to find out whether the physical infrastructure is available, whether this behavior is present, whether it is not present. This is something like that. It says by using checklist, what you have to do, first you have to list a set of items, like suppose you are studying availability of physical infrastructure of a school. So, you have to make a list: table, chair, blackboard, smartboard, computer, printer. You have to make a list. Against the list you have two options: yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So, that means checklist simply gives you data whether that particular item is available or not available. So, it does not say beyond that, only yes or no, agree or disagree, these 2 points only. But when you say rating scale is different. So, in case of rating scale, one point is there followed by scale. So, here you are not talking about yes or no, available, not available, no. You are measuring in terms of a scale. It may be 3-point scale, always, sometimes, never, 3-point scale. Sometimes you are using 5-point scale, strongly agree, undecided, disagree, strongly disagree. You are using a 5-point scale. Sometimes people use 7-point scale also. So, in a rating scale is indicating the degree of a presence of a particular quality or particular variable in your sample. But in case of rating, like in case of checklist, it is not indicating any degree. It is only saying present or not present, present or not present. But here it is telling it is present, to what extent it is present. And most of the time, suppose when we study the teaching effectiveness of teachers. So, in that what happens? We list the teaching behavior of the teacher, then you go to the classroom and observe. On basis of observation, we say, okay, teacher is using blackboard with legible handwriting. To what extent it is present? Always teacher write it, legible handwriting, or sometimes, or teacher never write on the board. So, rating scale gives a data in terms of degree. To what extent? But checklist gives you data in a yes or no form. So, therefore, I prefer, actually checklist is useful in some kind of research where you are interested only in describing the presence or absence of a particular things. The example I have given, study the facilities available in a particular school, or the curricular activity organized in a particular school. So, for that kind of problem, you have to list the activity, go to the school and just make a tick, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. But when you want to study the behavior of the students, the behavioral problems of the students, so then you have to use the rating scale. You want to study teaching effectiveness of teachers, you have to use the rating scale. You have to go to the field and observe and rating scale. One point I want to tell you that both observation and rating scale and checklist, so they are interrelated. I think rating scale and checklist are used to record the observation, because you know, when you use the checklist, you observe, then you check it, yes or no. Even in the, when you use the rating scale, you observe, then you say yes, this is present, this is this extent present, this is agree, this is not agree, so that you see it. So therefore I said checklist, rating scale, observation, there is some relation. Relation is that checklist and rating scale are used to record the observation, because rather I say rating scale, checklist systematize the observation. If you go to the field and with the no rating scale and checklist, you can observe many things, but how will you record it? So for recording it objectively, it is better to go with a rating scale and checklist.
Sir, very nicely you are describing. So I am a little bit greedy to ask about the perception scale, or what we are using like Likert scale. Sir, it's used like in the interval scale form in the research. Many students are using. So sir, it is on which scale and why?
Actually, we have, I got your point, like you want to know, we have a scale. We have a perception scale, we have a attitude scale. A very famous, we are all familiar with the attitude scale, and you say the Likert type scale, Thurston's type scale, that we use in the attitude scale and perception scale. I think if you say perception scale means, you know, perception, you need to understand what is perception, you need to understand what is attitude. So when you try to measure attitude, you are interested in defining favorable, unfavorable, positive, negative. But when you are studying perception, not necessarily you are interested to explain positive perception, negative perception, no. You want to explain perception in a different aspects. Suppose if you ask me the perception of the teacher educator towards teacher trainee, it cannot be defined in terms of positive and negative. It can be defined in a different ways. Perception of about the attitude of the trainees, about the knowledge of the trainees, about their activity of the trainees. So there are so many things. So there is a difference in the attitude and perception. But we are using a scale both ways. There is a attitude scale and there is a perception scale. But when we are measuring attitude and perception, we are using the same scale. Sometimes we use very popular scaling is the Likert scale. So in Likert scale, what happens? You have a one statement followed by maybe 5-point scale. Perception also, you have one statement followed by 5-point scales. And your question is whether this attitude scale and perception scale can be coming under your I think interval scale or in some other scale. Attitude scale, if you are following a Likert method, what happens? And you have a positive statement, you have a negative statement. Positive statement is given as point in a different way and negative statements are given in a different way. So then you finally you add positive point and negative point and you have a score for each and every individual. So that in that case, in attitude scale, we can go for using a interval data. This is attitude, though the score that you are getting from the attitude scale will come under a interval scale, because here plus favorable statement, unfavorable statement. So both you are scoring in a different way, then finally making a total. So here you can use the interval scale. You are little confused, like sometimes people are confused with the I think ordinal scale. So here you are giving a scale, 5-point scale, 9-point scale, 7-point scale you are giving, but here since we have a favorable and unfavorable, and that minimizes many errors, and therefore we can take it as a interval scale, interval data, and you can use all kind of statistic people are using, provided other condition of the statistic should be met.
Thank you, sir. You have nicely cleared all my doubts, also viewers' doubts. Today's session is a very interactive and very nicely you explain all the points from types of tools and techniques to data sources and all the things, scales of measurement and observation schedule observation. Thank you, sir, for today.
Okay, before I conclude this, like, I want to tell you that, there are tools and techniques are there. So, these tools and technique, especially the tools, are developed. So, either you can develop it or you can use some standardized tools. I think we can have a discussion in the next session. So, how we can develop and standardize tools.